Motivation is the most dangerous lie you've been taught. It convinces you that action requires feeling ready, inspired, or emotionally charged. And every time that feeling disappears, your progress dies with it. This audiobook will show you why motivation fails by design and how disciplined systems replace it with automatic execution. You will learn how to act without emotion, focus without excitement, and move forward even when your mind resists. This is not about hype. This is about control. If you're done waiting to feel motivated, listen carefully. Chapter 1. Motivation is emotion, and emotion is unstable. Motivation is not discipline. Motivation is not character. Motivation is not a system. Motivation is emotion, and emotion is unstable. This matters because anything unstable cannot be trusted to produce consistent results. You do not build a life on instability. You do not build focus on volatility. You do not build discipline on how you feel. That is the first principle. Motivation is a chemical event in the brain, a temporary spike, triggered by novelty, hope, fear, or fantasy. It is not under your control, and it does not obey your schedule. That's the key. If something does not obey your schedule, it does not serve you. You have a choice. You can organize your life around emotion, or you can organize your life around structure. One will fail you repeatedly. The other will not. Emotion cannot be trusted to build consistency. Watch how this plays out in the real world. People begin with intensity. They start a program. They buy the book. They commit publicly. They feel energized. They feel different. For a few days, sometimes a few weeks, they act. Then the feeling changes. The excitement fades. The novelty disappears. The work becomes repetitive. Silence replaces stimulation. And then they vanish. Not because the system stopped working. Not because the goal was wrong. Not because progress was impossible. They stopped because emotion left. That pattern repeats everywhere. Gyms in January. Courses half completed. Journals with 10 pages written. Projects abandoned mid-construction. This is not a mystery. This is not laziness. This is not a moral failure. It is a structural error. They built their behavior on emotion. Emotion cannot be trusted to build consistency. You do not need to feel inspired to act. You do not need confidence to execute. You do not need excitement to repeat a task. You need a system that functions when emotion is absent. That's the key. Motivation tells you, act when it feels good. Discipline says, act because it is scheduled. Motivation negotiates. Discipline executes. Motivation asks questions. Discipline follows instructions. You have a choice. You can wait until you feel ready, or you can decide that readiness is irrelevant. You can wait for alignment, or you can build alignment through repetition. It's not about motivation, it's about discipline. Emotion is reactive. It responds to external conditions. Good sleep, praise, visible progress, low resistance. Remove those conditions and emotion disappears. Structure does not react. Structure remains. This is why relying on motivation produces inconsistency. Your behavior becomes dependent on variables you do not control. Weather, mood, feedback, energy, life events. That is not strength. That is fragility. A disciplined system is anti-fragile. It simplifies behavior into non-negotiable actions. It removes interpretation. It removes debate. You do not wake up and ask how you feel. You execute what is assigned. You don't need their permission. Not from your mood. Not from your past. Not from anyone watching. Emotion is not an authority. It is data at best. Noise at worst. That's the key. When you feel motivated, work still happens. When you feel nothing, work still happens. When you feel resistance, work still happens. That is consistency. Emotion cannot be trusted to build consistency. Understand this clearly, motivation is not something to be cultivated. It is something to be made irrelevant. High performers do not feel more motivated than average people. They feel less dependent on feeling. They have rules. They have routines. They have fixed times and fixed behaviors. They do not ask, "Do I want to?" They ask, "What is next?" This is not harsh. This is liberating. When emotion no longer controls action, focus stabilizes. When focus stabilizes, output increases. When output increases, identity changes. But it starts here. You must stop treating motivation as fuel. It is not fuel. It is weather. Sometimes favorable. Often not. Always temporary. You would not plan a mission based on weather. You would plan it based on logistics. Your life deserves the same precision. So here's the rule. Never assign responsibility to emotion. Never make action conditional on feeling. Never wait for internal permission to do external work. That's the key. Replace emotional triggers with mechanical triggers. Time triggers. Location triggers. Sequence triggers. At a certain time, you begin. In a certain place, you work. After a certain action, the next action follows. No interpretation. No discussion. This is how consistency is built. Not through force. Through design. You have a choice. You can continue to believe motivation is the answer and repeat the cycle of starting and stopping. Or you can accept the truth. Motivation is unreliable and systems are not. Emotion cannot be trusted to build consistency. This chapter is not an opinion. It is a diagnosis. If your execution is inconsistent, the cause is not a lack of desire. It is a lack of structure. In the next chapter, you will learn what discipline actually is and what it is not. Not willpower, not intensity, not self-punishment, design. And once you understand that, motivation becomes unnecessary. Chapter 2. Discipline is not willpower, it's design. Most people misunderstand discipline. They think discipline is force. They think discipline is grinding teeth and pushing harder. They think discipline is winning an internal argument every morning. That belief is why they fail. Discipline is not willpower. Willpower is a limited resource. It drains. It weakens under stress, fatigue, and pressure. Design does not drain. That's the key. Discipline is the removal of choice through structure. When choice disappears, resistance disappears with it. You have a choice. You can try to overpower your mind every day, or you can outsmart it once and let the system do the work. Most people choose the first option. They rely on daily effort, daily motivation, daily self-control. And every day, the same thing happens. They negotiate. They delay. They rationalize. They quit early. Not because they are weak, because they design nothing. You don't rise to motivation. You fall to your systems. On your best days, willpower feels strong. On your worst days, it disappears. A real system works on your worst days. That's the test. If your process only works when you feel good, it is not a system. It is a hope. Design removes the need to feel capable. It replaces emotion with instruction. You do not ask yourself what you want to do. You execute what is already decided. That's the key. Consider the difference. A willpower-based plan says, "I'll work when I feel focused." A system-based plan says, "At 6 a.m., I sit at the desk and begin." One depends on mood. The other depends on time. Time is reliable. Mood is not. You have a choice. Every point of choice is a point of failure. Every decision invites resistance. What should I work on? How long should I go? Should I rest today? Should I start later? Each question drains energy. Design eliminates questions. You wake up. The schedule answers for you. You sit down. The task is already defined. You begin. No discussion. You don't need their permission. Not from your mind. Not from your emotions. Not from your circumstances. This is why disciplined people appear calm. They're not fighting themselves. They are following a structure. You don't rise to motivation. You fall to your systems. Look at systems that actually work. A writer who writes every day does not decide whether to write. The decision was made once, long ago. The time is fixed. The location is fixed. The minimum output is defined. On bad days, they write badly. On good days, they write well. Either way, they write. That is discipline. A person who trains consistently does not debate the gym. The bag is packed. The time is blocked. The routine is known. They show up tired. They show up distracted. They show up unmotivated. They show up. That's the key. Discipline is not intensity. Intensity burns out. Discipline is predictability. The mind adapts to predictability. It resists chaos. When your actions follow a pattern, resistance decreases over time. When actions are random, resistance resets every day. It's not about force, it's about structure. Design works because it respects how the brain functions. The brain prefers familiarity. The brain prefers clear rules. The brain prefers certainty. When rules are clear, the brain stops arguing. This is why decision elimination is critical. Same wake-up time, same start time, same sequence of actions. Not because variety is bad, but because variety requires choice. And choice invites emotion back into the process. Emotion cannot be trusted to build consistency. Design can. You have a choice. You can keep asking yourself to be disciplined, or you could design a life where discipline is unavoidable. This requires humility. You must admit that your feelings are unreliable. You must stop believing that future motivation will save you. That's the key. A system does not care about your self-image. It does not care how you explain yourself. It only produces output, and output changes identity. Most people try to change who they are first. Then they hope behavior follows. That sequence is wrong. Behavior comes first. Identity follows. But behavior must be protected from emotion. That protection is design. Rules, schedules, constraints, not flexible guidelines, non-negotiable structures. You don't rise to motivation. You fall to your systems. Ask yourself one question, honestly. On your worst day, tired, distracted, uninterested, does your system still function? If the answer is no, you do not lack discipline. You lack design. That is not a criticism. It is a correction. You don't need to be harder on yourself. You need fewer decisions. Remove choice at the point of action. Decide once. Execute many times. That's the key. Discipline is quiet. It does not announce itself. It does not need emotional reinforcement. It shows up because it has nowhere else to go. In the next chapter, you will learn why the brain does not respond to desire or intention, and why repetition, not ambition, is what trains focus and behavior over time. Design the system first. Everything else follows. Chapter 3. The brain obeys what is repeated, not what is desired. The brain does not respond to intention. It does not respond to goals. It does not respond to what you hope will happen. It responds to repetition. That is the rule. You can want change deeply. You can visualize it clearly. You can talk about it intelligently. None of that matters to the brain. The brain is a pattern recognition machine. It learns through exposure, not ambition. That's the key. Every repeated action becomes a signal. Every signal teaches the brain what to prioritize, what to ignore, what to automate. Your brain is always learning. The only question is what you are training it to do. You have a choice. You can train distraction, or you can train focus. You can train avoidance, or you can train engagement. You can train inconsistency, or you can train follow-through. The brain does not judge. It records. This is why intention fails. You intend to focus. Then you check your phone. You intend to work deeply. Then you interrupt yourself. The brain observes the pattern. It does not hear your intention. It sees your behavior, and it adapts accordingly. That's the key. People believe attention is something they have. It is not. Attention is something you practice. Every time you break focus, you rehearse breaking focus. Every time you stay with a task, you rehearse staying. The brain learns through exposure, not ambition. This is why daily routines matter more than goals. A goal is an abstract future outcome. A routine is a repeated present action. The brain only lives in the present. You tell the brain, this is important, by doing it again tomorrow. And the day after that. And the day after that. Not by writing it down once. You don't need their permission. Not from your thoughts. Not from your doubts. Not from your past failures. You train the brain whether you believe in yourself or not. That's the key. Look at how routines shape attention. A person who sits at the same desk at the same time every day does not struggle to begin. The environment cues the behavior. The behavior cues focus. No willpower required. At first, attention feels unstable. The mind wanders. Resistance appears. But repetition continues. After enough exposure, the brain stops resisting. It recognizes the pattern. This is where focus becomes automatic. Not because you tried harder, because you repeated longer. The brain learns through exposure, not ambition. Ambition excites the imagination. Exposure rewires the nervous system. Most people confuse the two. They think wanting something strongly will change behavior. It will not. Only repeated action changes behavior. That is not pessimistic. It is precise. You have a choice. You can design routines that train your attention every day, or you can continue hoping your mind will behave differently tomorrow. Tomorrow behaves like today, unless today changes. That's the key. This is also why inconsistency is so damaging. Every skipped session trains the brain that the behavior is optional. Every exception teaches the brain that rules are flexible. The brain prefers clear rules. Do it or do not do it. Always or never. Scheduled or unscheduled. Ambiguity creates resistance. Consistency creates compliance. This is why systems must be boring. Boredom means predictability. Predictability means the brain can relax into the pattern. Stimulation creates alertness. Repetition creates skill. It's not about excitement. It's about exposure. The brain learns through exposure, not ambition. Focus is not a talent. It is a trained response. You train it by showing up when nothing is interesting, by staying when nothing is happening, by continuing when there is no immediate reward. This is uncomfortable at first. That discomfort is not a signal to stop. It is the signal that training is occurring. You don't rise to motivation. You fall to your systems. If your system exposes you to focused work daily, focus increases. If your system exposes you to distraction daily, distraction increases. The brain does not negotiate. It obeys what is repeated. So here is the rule. Never ask the brain to change through desire. Change what it is exposed to. Change the time. Change the place. Change the sequence. Then repeat. You have a choice. You can keep setting goals and wondering why nothing sticks. Or you can build routines that train your nervous system quietly, relentlessly. That's the key. In the next chapter, you will see why goals fail not because they are wrong, but because they misunderstand how the brain creates results. Systems do not argue with the brain. They train it. Chapter 4. Why goals fail and systems don't. Goals are not useless. They are incomplete. A goal names an outcome. It does not produce one. This distinction matters. Most people treat goals as engines. They are not. They are coordinates. A coordinate tells you where you want to go. It does not move you. Behavior moves you. That's the key. A system is behavior repeated under structure. A goal is an idea about the future. Only one of those exists in the present. Systems create results as a side effect. This is why goals fail so often. They shift attention away from process and toward outcome. They make people emotionally dependent on progress markers. They encourage bursts of effort followed by long gaps. When progress slows, motivation drops. When motivation drops, action stops. Not because the goal was wrong, because the mechanism was missing. You have a choice. You can chase outcomes, or you can build behaviors that make outcomes inevitable. It's not about goals, it's about discipline. Look at fitness. A goal says lose 20 pounds. A system says train 4 days per week at the same time. The scale may fluctuate. The system does not. One creates anxiety. The other creates momentum. Momentum does not come from results. It comes from repeated execution. That's the key. A person who tracks workouts will eventually change their body. A person who stares at the mirror will not. Systems create results as a side effect. Look at writing. A goal says write a book. A system says write 500 words every morning. The book appears later. The system exists now. Most people wait to feel like a writer. Writers write first. Identity follows behavior. You don't need their permission. Not from confidence. Not from external validation. The system does the convincing. Look at business. A goal says build a successful company. A system says make 10 outreach attempts every weekday. The outcome varies. The behavior does not. Over time, results compound. Systems create results as a side effect. Goals fail because they demand belief. Systems function without belief. You do not have to believe in your system. You only have to follow it. That's the key. Goals also distort time. They push your attention into the future. They make the present feel insufficient. This creates impatience. Impatience leads to shortcuts. Shortcuts break systems. A system respects time. It works slowly, predictably. You have a choice. You can live in anticipation, or you can live in execution. Execution builds confidence. Anticipation builds anxiety. Goals are emotional. Systems are mechanical. Emotion fluctuates. Mechanics endure. It's not about inspiration, it's about repetition. This is why vision boards fail. They stimulate desire without training behavior. They create emotional spikes without structural support. The brain learns through exposure, not ambition. Looking at a future image does not train action. Performing a present behavior does. That's the key. A system answers 3 questions clearly. When does the behavior happen? Where does it happen? What is the minimum action required? If those are not defined, you do not have a system. You have an intention. Intentions feel good. Systems produce results. You don't rise to motivation. You fall to your systems. When life becomes chaotic, goals collapse. Systems adapt. When energy drops, goals feel heavy. Systems continue. This is why high performers focus obsessively on process. They track inputs, not outcomes. They measure adherence, not achievement. Outcomes lag. Inputs are immediate. Systems create results as a side effect. Here is the rule. Set goals once. Design systems daily. Never evaluate yourself based on outcomes you do not control. Evaluate yourself on behaviors you do. You have a choice. You can judge your worth by results, or you can judge your discipline by execution. One creates pressure. The other creates progress. That's the key. Goals are not the enemy. Dependence on them is. Use goals as direction. Use systems as law. In the next chapter, you'll learn why boredom is not an obstacle to focus, but the environment in which focus is trained. If you can stay with the process, the outcome will arrive on its own schedule. Systems do not chase results. They produce them. Chapter 5. Focus is a skill trained through boredom. Focus is not a personality trait. It is not a gift. It is not something you either have or lack. Focus is a trained response, and it is trained in one place most people avoid. Boredom. That's the key. Deep focus is built by staying when stimulation disappears, when novelty fades, when the task becomes repetitive. when nothing feels exciting. Most people leave at that moment. They seek stimulation. They seek variety. They seek relief. And every time they leave, they train distraction. Focus is forged when nothing feels exciting. The brain is always learning. It learns what you reinforce. It learns what you escape. When you escape boredom, the brain learns that boredom is dangerous. When you stay, the brain learns that boredom is survivable. That distinction changes everything. You have a choice. You can treat boredom as a signal to stop, or you can treat it as the training ground. Most people confuse stimulation with engagement. They're not the same. Stimulation is external. Engagement is internal. Stimulation excites the senses. Engagement holds attention. Focus requires engagement, not stimulation. That's the key. This is why modern environments weaken attention. They remove boredom entirely. Constant input, constant noise, constant novelty. The brain never learns to stay. So when stimulation is removed, discomfort appears. Restlessness, impatience, the urge to escape. That discomfort is not a flaw. It is withdrawal. You are withdrawing from stimulation. Focus is forged when nothing feels exciting. High performers understand this. They schedule monotony intentionally. Same time, same place, same tools, same task. Not because they lack creativity, because they understand training. A musician practices scales. An athlete drills fundamentals. A thinker sits with silence. They do not chase excitement. They build tolerance. Tolerance for stillness. Tolerance for repetition. Tolerance for unfinished progress. That tolerance becomes focus. You don't need their permission. Not from your emotions. Not from your boredom. Not from your restlessness. Those sensations are not commands. They are conditions. Conditions pass. Structure remains. That's the key. Most people believe they lose focus because they are tired or distracted. That is not accurate. They lose focus because they have not trained staying. The first minutes of boredom feel heavy. The mind looks for exits. Thoughts scatter. If you leave, the brain learns. Leaving works. If you stay, something shifts. The noise settles. The task sharpens. Attention narrows. This is not magic. It is adaptation. The brain learns through exposure, not ambition. Repeated exposure to boredom without escape trains sustained attention. Focus is forged when nothing feels exciting. This is why systems matter here. You cannot rely on desire to stay. Desire leaves first. You need rules. A fixed duration. A fixed environment. A fixed start. No music. No background stimulation. No rewards during the session. Not forever. Just during training. It's not about comfort. It's about discipline. You have a choice. You can build a life that constantly entertains your mind, or you can build a mind that does not require entertainment. One creates dependence. The other creates control. That's the key. High performers do not protect themselves from boredom. They expose themselves to it deliberately. They understand that boredom is the doorway. On the other side of boredom is depth, clarity, flow. But you do not reach flow by chasing it. You reach it by staying long enough. Most people quit 5 minutes before focus stabilizes. They interpret discomfort as failure. It is not. It is the signal that training has begun. Focus is forged when nothing feels exciting. This also explains why multitasking destroys attention. Switching tasks resets boredom tolerance. Each switch trains the brain to expect novelty. The brain becomes impatient. Single tasking trains patience. Patience supports focus. You don't rise to motivation. You fall to your systems. If your system allows constant switching, focus will never stabilize. If your system enforces continuity, focus will strengthen. That's the key. Here is the rule. Schedule focus sessions where boredom is unavoidable. Remove stimulation deliberately. Stay for the full duration. Do not judge the quality of work. Only judge whether you stayed. Quality improves later. Staying comes first. You have a choice. You can chase productivity tricks, or you can train your nervous system. Tricks fade. Training accumulates. This is why short-term hacks fail. They optimize output without training attention. They produce bursts without depth. Depth requires endurance. Endurance is built in boredom. Focus is forged when nothing feels exciting. This chapter is not asking you to enjoy boredom. Enjoyment is irrelevant. It is asking you to respect it. Boredom is not the enemy of focus. It is the instructor. In the next chapter, you will learn how removing choice entirely eliminates resistance and why fewer decisions create more execution. If you can stay when nothing is happening, you can focus anywhere. That is control. Chapter 6. Remove choice and you remove resistance. Resistance is not a mystery. It is not a personality flaw. It is not a lack of discipline. Resistance is the result of choice. Every decision taxes the mind. Every option creates friction. Every moment of deliberation opens the door to avoidance. That's the key. When choice disappears, resistance weakens. When resistance weakens, execution increases. Less choice equals more execution. Most people try to fight resistance with effort. They push harder. They argue with themselves. They attempt to overpower hesitation. This fails because resistance is not emotional. It is structural. The mind resists uncertainty. Choice creates uncertainty. You have a choice. You can design your life to require constant decisions, or you can design it to run on predetermined actions. One exhausts you. The other carries you. Less choice equals more execution. Consider the moment before action. You wake up. You ask yourself what to do first. You check messages. You drift. That is not laziness. That is decision fatigue beginning its work. Now, consider a different structure. You wake up. The first action is fixed. The second action follows automatically. The sequence is known. No decision required. Execution begins immediately. That's the key. High performers do not make fewer mistakes because they are smarter. They make fewer decisions. They eliminate choice where it does not add value. Fixed schedules, non-negotiable routines, pre-committed environments. These are not restrictions. They are liberations. You don't need their permission. Not from your mind. Not from your mood. Not from your circumstances. The system has already decided. Less choice equals more execution. Look at fixed schedules. When work starts at the same time every day, the brain stops debating. There is no question of when to begin. Beginning is automatic. When schedules vary, the mind looks for optimal conditions. Optimal conditions rarely arrive. Consistency beats optimization. That's the key. Look at non-negotiable routines. A routine with exceptions is not a routine. It is a suggestion. Non-negotiable means the action happens regardless of internal state. Not because you are rigid, because you understand training. Training requires repetition. Repetition requires reliability. Less choice equals more execution. Look at pre-committed environments. The environment shapes behavior more than intention ever will. If your phone is in reach, distraction is available. If your workspace is cluttered, focus is taxed. High performers remove temptation before it appears. They do not trust themselves in the moment. They design the moment in advance. That's the key. This is not weakness. It is accuracy. The mind is predictable. Given choice, it seeks comfort. Remove choice, and comfort is irrelevant. You have a choice. You can continue believing that you should make better decisions, or you can accept that fewer decisions produce better outcomes. This applies to focus. This applies to habits. This applies to life. Less choice equals more execution. Every decision you eliminate saves energy for the work itself. Decide your wake-up time once. Decide your work block once. Decide your training days once. Then stop deciding. This is how resistance loses leverage. Resistance thrives on hesitation. Hesitation requires choice. Remove the choice, and resistance has nothing to work with. That's the key. Many people fear structure because they confuse it with control imposed by others. This is self-imposed structure. You are not losing freedom. You are choosing effectiveness. Freedom without structure leads to drift. Structure creates direction. You don't rise to motivation. You fall to your systems. If your system forces decision-making at the point of action, execution will suffer. If your system forces execution without decision, consistency will rise. This is not theory. It is observable. Athletes train at fixed times. Writers write at fixed hours. Organizations use checklists, not because they lack creativity, because creativity requires energy, and energy must be conserved. Less choice equals more execution. Here is the rule. Wherever possible, eliminate choice before action. Decide in advance. Lock it in. Do not rely on your future self to choose correctly. Your future self will be tired. That's the key. Design your days so that the correct action is the default action. When the default is correct, discipline becomes effortless. Effort is not the goal. Consistency is. You have a choice. You can keep managing resistance, or you can remove its source. Remove choice. In the next chapter, you will learn why consistency, not intensity, is what reshapes identity, and why small, repeated actions outperform heroic effort over time. Systems do not argue with resistance. They bypass it. Chapter 7. Consistency beats intensity every time. Intensity is seductive. It feels powerful. It looks impressive, but it is fragile. Spikes burn bright and die fast. They cannot sustain momentum. Consistency does not impress. It does not feel exciting. It does not seek attention, but it transforms. Intensity impresses. Consistency transforms. Most people mistake effort for progress. They believe the harder they push in bursts, the faster they advance. They sprint. They collapse. They restart. They repeat the cycle. Progress becomes unpredictable. Momentum disappears. Identity never solidifies. You have a choice. You can chase intensity, or you can build consistency. It's not about heroics. It's about repetition. Consider small daily actions. A writer writes 500 words per day. A runner logs 30 minutes every morning. A business person makes 5 calls daily. None of these actions feel monumental. None of them create spikes of motivation. But repeated over months and years, they produce results far beyond what sporadic effort could achieve. Consistency builds identity. Identity sustains action. Intensity does not. That's the key. High performers do not rely on bursts of energy. They rely on habits. They rely on systems that operate independently of motivation. They act daily, regardless of mood, energy, or circumstance. You don't rise to motivation. You fall to your systems. Notice the pattern. Daily exposure creates competence. Competence creates confidence. Confidence reinforces the behavior. The brain begins to expect the action. The nervous system anticipates the routine. Distraction loses its power. Focus strengthens. Consistency is invisible at first. The work feels small. The progress feels slow. It is easy to underestimate. This is why intensity is tempting. It feels immediate. It offers instant gratification. But short-term spikes do not create long-term outcomes. They create exhaustion. They create regret. They create instability. Intensity impresses. Consistency transforms. You have a choice. You can continue performing in bursts, celebrating effort instead of results. Or you can commit to steady, repeatable actions that accumulate into competence, skill, and identity. Consistency protects against life's unpredictability. It ensures that even on bad days, work continues. It ensures that execution is not dependent on mood or energy. Small, daily actions outperform heroic effort over time. A single, consistent step repeated daily is more powerful than a week of intense work followed by inactivity. This is true in fitness. It is true in learning. It is true in creation. It is true in business. Your habits compound silently. They work even when you're unaware. They train the mind, body, and attention without fanfare. Intensity impresses. Consistency transforms. Consistency removes reliance on emotion. It removes reliance on motivation. It removes reliance on willpower. The structure carries you forward. The system becomes the vehicle. The work becomes automatic. You don't need their permission. You don't need to feel inspired. You don't need a burst of energy. You need a schedule. You need a routine. You need repetition. That's the key. Evaluate progress by action, not by effort. Evaluate the system, not the momentary spike. Intensity is temporary. Consistency is permanent. Every day you execute a repeated behavior, identity shifts imperceptibly. You become the person who shows up. You become the person who acts without waiting for motivation. You become reliable. This is the leverage point most people miss. Heroic effort creates stories. Steady execution creates results. Intensity impresses. Consistency transforms. You have a choice. You can chase the high of effort, or you can invest in the slow accumulation of competence. One builds pride. The other builds skill. The other builds identity. In the next chapter, you will learn how to train your mind to work without immediate reward, why dependence on dopamine is dangerous, and how delayed reinforcement strengthens focus and persistence. Consistency is the engine. Intensity is the fuel. Do not confuse the two. Chapter 8. Train the mind to work without reward. Most people believe work must feel good to be done. They wait for motivation. They wait for excitement. They wait for pleasure. This is a lie. The brain craves dopamine. It wants reward before effort. It wants feedback before action. Dependence on this craving destroys focus. It makes work optional. It makes attention fleeting. It makes results unstable. That's the key. High performers act differently. They work without music, without hype, without applause, without immediate payoff. You don't need to feel good to do the work. At first, this is uncomfortable. The mind complains. Discomfort rises. Resistance appears. This is normal. It is the signal of training. Immediate reward weakens effort. Delayed reward strengthens it. When gratification is postponed, the mind adapts. It learns persistence. It learns patience. It learns focus independent of mood. Consider a writer. They write every morning. No likes, no recognition, no validation. The work accumulates. The skill grows. The system compounds. The reward comes later. You don't need to feel good to do the work. A runner trains in silence. No cheering. No excitement. No immediate transformation. The body adapts. The habit solidifies. Results emerge over time. This is not theory. This is neuroscience. The brain forms pathways based on repeated exposure, not pleasure. The nervous system strengthens through persistence, not entertainment. That's the key. Pleasure-driven action is fragile. System-driven action is durable. Remove the expectation of reward. Focus on the task. Follow the system. Repeat. You have a choice. You can work only when motivated, or you can work because the system demands it. Every unrewarded session compounds silently. Every repeated action without pleasure trains independence from emotion. Every effort without hype strengthens focus. Most people avoid this. They chase excitement. They chase immediate reward. They remain shallow. They never build depth. They never learn sustained attention. You don't rise to motivation. You fall to your systems. You don't need to feel good to do the work. Structure is your ally. Repetition is your tool. Delay is your teacher. Systems carry action forward even when emotion is absent. Execution becomes inevitable. Focus becomes automatic. Reward is optional. Action is mandatory. This is how the mind becomes disciplined. This is how attention is trained. This is how mastery begins. In the next chapter, you will see how repeated action shapes identity. Why what you do daily determines who you become, regardless of how you feel. You don't need to feel good to do the work. You need to do it. Chapter 9. Systems create identity. Identity sustains action. Most people misunderstand change. They believe who they are determines what they do. They think identity precedes behavior. This is false. You become what you repeatedly do, not what you plan. That is the principle. It is the foundation. It is the mechanism that separates performers from dreamers. Identity follows action, not the other way around. Most people wait for permission, from confidence, from belief, from mood. They tell themselves, I will act once I am capable. They plan, they visualize, they hope, and nothing changes. High performers do the opposite. They act first. They follow the system. They repeat. Behavior comes first. Identity emerges second. That's the key. Consider a disciplined writer. They sit and write daily. They do not feel like a writer at first. They write anyway. The label comes later. Consider an athlete. They train every morning. They do not feel like an athlete on day one. They train anyway. Identity emerges through repetition. The system produces the person. The habit produces the identity. You don't need their permission. Not from your mind. Not from your confidence. Not from your past failures. Action precedes identity. This explains why belief alone fails. Belief is passive. Behavior is active. Belief without repetition is empty. Identity follows action, not the other way around. Systems enforce behavior. Behavior enforces identity. Identity sustains action. Once identity shifts, execution becomes effortless. Resistance drops. Focus stabilizes. Consistency becomes automatic. That is why systems are more powerful than goals. They produce results, and they transform the self quietly and invisibly. Look at small daily decisions. The person who consistently chooses to train becomes a trainer. The person who consistently chooses to read becomes a learner. The person who consistently executes small tasks becomes a reliable performer. These identities are not chosen. They are earned. They are reinforced by repetition. It is not about wanting to be someone. It is about doing what that person would do, then repeating it again. Identity follows action, not the other way around. High performers build non-negotiable routines that reinforce their chosen identity. They show up regardless of feeling. They follow rules they set for themselves. They reinforce identity with every repetition. You have a choice. You can wait to be someone before acting, or you can act deliberately to become that someone. Most people wait. Most people fail. Most people never start. Systems are the shortcut. They do not require belief. They do not require energy. They do not require mood. Systems produce identity as a side effect. Identity sustains action. This is why stopping once you feel ready is a mistake. You are never ready. Action creates readiness. Repetition creates mastery. Identity follows action, not the other way around. Every repeated behavior is a vote for the person you want to become. Miss a session, and you vote against yourself. Repeat enough times, and you are no longer debating. Identity carries you forward automatically. That is the power of systems. You don't rise to motivation. You fall to your systems. You don't act because you feel like it. You act because the system dictates it. You act because action defines you. That is the key. In the next chapter, you will learn why controlling the process guarantees outcomes. You will see why, when systems are locked in, results are inevitable, and why the future obeys structure, not hope. Identity follows action, not the other way around. The system you follow today becomes the person you are tomorrow. Chapter 10. Control the process, and the outcome follows. Results are not random. They do not arrive because you hope, desire, or feel motivated. They arrive because systems operate consistently. When systems are locked in, results become inevitable. That is the principle. It is the final law of high performance. You cannot control every variable in life. You cannot control mood. You cannot control energy. You cannot control external events. But you can control the system. The system is the lever. The system is the architecture. The system is the mechanism through which results emerge. Consider mental clarity. A person with a fixed morning routine, consistent work blocks, and structured breaks maintains calm and focus. They do not rely on inspiration. They do not chase motivation. They control the process. The result is clarity. The result is stability. The result is mental resilience. Consider life stability. A person who follows the same sleep schedule, exercise regimen, and priority-driven workflow avoids chaos. Distractions exist. Stress exists. Uncertainty exists. Yet outcomes remain predictable. Why? Because the system governs the present, and the present determines the future. Control the system, and the future obeys. Every repeated action compounds. Every structure reinforces itself. Every routine reduces decision fatigue and eliminates resistance. You don't rise to motivation. You fall to your systems. Focus becomes automatic. Execution becomes inevitable. Progress compounds silently. Even small actions matter. A single system, executed daily, transforms over weeks, months, and years. The cumulative effect exceeds what bursts of motivation could ever accomplish. That's the key. High performers understand this. They do not chase outcomes. They chase process. They refine the system. They lock it in. They execute it without debate. The results follow. Always. You have a choice. You can rely on hope, inspiration, and random motivation, or you can control the system. One path produces chaos. The other produces results. Control the system, and the future obeys. This principle applies to every domain: health, work, learning, relationships, creativity. Every outcome can be predicted if the system is designed correctly and executed consistently. Systems protect you from your own mind. Systems protect you from your environment. Systems protect you from temptation. Control the system, and the future obeys. Take this seriously. Decide today which systems will govern your actions. Lock them in. Follow them without question. Let the process work. You will find freedom in structure. You will find results in repetition. You will find identity in execution. This is not theory. It is law. Control the system, and the future obeys. If you apply these principles consistently, your work, your focus, and your life will change. You don't need motivation. You don't need permission. You don't need luck. You need a system. Lock it in. Execute. That is the ultimate path. If you found this audiobook valuable, make sure to subscribe to this channel for more step-by-step, system-focused strategies. Every video is designed to train your mind, sharpen your focus, and help you execute without relying on fleeting motivation. Control the system, and the future obeys. Execute today.